The one thing that's clear is that when you don't have Steph and you don't have Wiggins, I kind of think this team goes as Jordan Poole goes, and Jordan Poole didn't go last night.
Right.
And the one thing I don't understand about Jordan Poole, why are you shooting so many perimeter shots when the shot's not falling? He was 3 of 13 last night, 2 of 7, I think, from beyond the arc. His three-point shooting percentage is down.
Mm-hmm.
His free throw shooting percentage is down. This guy, to me, Whitey, is so much more dynamic when he's putting it on the deck and attacking the rim. And I just would like to see him do more of it. I mean, don't settle for outside shots. Attack the rim a little bit more. And you know, I don't know. I'm going to ask Kerr about it because it's one of those questions I'd love to know. Has Steve said to him, hey, man, the shots aren't falling. Attack the front of the rim.
Yeah, we'll talk to Steve Kerr today at 5. Jordan Poole, to me, and I could be totally wrong, I was wrong about him when he was a rookie, Larry. I don't know about you, but I saw that guy as a rookie, and I thought, he's not an NBA player. And he worked his tail off. Yeah. Obviously, he's an NBA player, got a huge contract, but I just think he's very mercurial. He's very inconsistent. And I know Steiny says, well, he's a young player, and that's true, but this is his 4th year, and I suspect he's always going to be kind of up and down, kind of streaky, as some guys are. And when Steph's out and you're relying on a guy like that, you know, you never know what you're going to get. You're going to get a hot streak like he had last night, second quarter, then you're going to get him falling down. So
he's a turnstile on defense. I mean,
he really is.
Yeah. He doesn't stay in front of anybody.
Turnstiles are probably better defensively than him, but I agree with you.
Have you ever seen a guy who's got this kind of quickness off the bounce on the offensive end of the floor, but no lateral agility on the defensive end of the floor? He cannot keep his body in front of anybody.
JD and I talk about that a lot on Warriors This Week, and we're back tomorrow morning. But yeah, isn't it? He's so quick. And yet, if he's guarding somebody, what happened? Where did the quickness go? 888-957-9570. Talk to Zach and Martinez on 95.7 The Game. Hey, Zach, you're on with Larry and Whitey. What's up?
Hey, guys.
Hey.
Thanks for having me on.
Yeah.
Big fan of the show. So I just wanted to kind of talk to your point about, before you guys went to break, about the Warriors and their expectations. So I'm actually a big Tampa Bay Buccaneer fan and also a big Warrior fan. And to me, the Warriors are the Tampa Bay Buccaneers of this year. They have the Tom Brady effect, which I think is the same effect that kind of the big three have, which is you can't always count them out. And I think that same thing. They're just older. They're just slower. The supporting cast just isn't there this year. So I expect them to limp into the playoffs and just not do too much. Pretty similar to what the Tampa Bay Buccaneers did. So that's my take.
Thanks, Zach.
Who knows how they actually feel? But to me, it just seems like they're losing their belief that they're going to flip a switch. I mean,
I'll bet you won't ask her that. I'll bet you don't have the guts.
I bet you I do.
All right.
I bet you I do.
Steve Kerr at 5.
Yeah, we'll see. Tune in at 5. See if I ask that question. We're getting almost March, and they're sub 500. So, do they have a switch to flip? I mean, I don't know. To me, it's easy to say, well, you are who you are, but this team's got championship pedigree. Or I shouldn't say that because there are guys on this team that have championship pedigree.
Never underestimate the heart of a champion.
Yeah, I mean, I was listening to Steiny and Guru driving in, and Steiny's like, this team won a title last year. And really, this team didn't win a title last year. It was a different team that won a title last year. It was a younger team. It was a deeper team. It was a better team. It was a team that started off really hot, then flushed the Phoenix Suns in Phoenix on Christmas Day, and kind of it didn't matter.
Then they won at Utah on New Year's Day a week later. Yeah,
exactly.
Right.
And then so a lot of the anecdotal, middle of the season stuff or late in the season stuff, like when they've struggled, in the springtime, in the regular season, you didn't think much of it because you had seen them at the beginning of the year rampage, and then you saw them step it up on Christmas. This year, I mean, they had a nice win against Boston. They had a nice win against Memphis. They've had a couple statement wins, but in reality, this is who they are. This hugely inconsistent team that doesn't play very connected defensively away from Oracle.
I'll tell you,
or away from Chase, I should say.
Yeah, pardon me. I think one of their most fundamental issues is right now. I'll tell you in just a minute. I'd love to know what you think of this. First, here's Steve Kerr. To the point you just raised, this year's team is not last year's team, and Steve Kerr will be the first to admit that.
We're a very different team, totally different teams. I wouldn't compare this team to teams in the past. We are our own team, and so we have to form our own identity. And unfortunately, we're struggling with the same issues. The fouling was another huge factor tonight. We're sending them to the line over and over again. And I thought we had some disjointed offensive possessions, some turnovers, some difficult shots that were basically shot turnovers. And there were several key stretches where we had a chance. We had gotten ourselves back in the game, and then we just couldn't put it together, couldn't connect the game and make a run. And so it's all right there for us on tape, and we'll show them. We'll keep coaching and keep trying to get better.
If the Warriors are a past Warriors team, as Steve Kerr says, no, different team. They're not last year's team. They are, as Anthony Slater said today on the morning show, on the Morning Roast, they're the play-in year team. That's who this team is. If they're any past Warrior team, they're that team that got into the play-in and got bounced in 2 games. That's the team that this team really resembles.
Yeah. I think this team's probably better, actually.
I hope so, but I'm not sure.
Well, I'll tell you what's the most frustrating part for me, and I don't know if other Warrior fans feel the same way, but if you had told me on opening night that we would be looking at the standings on the 24th of February and the Warriors would be basically hovering at the 500 mark, I would have said to you, my first reaction would have been like, okay, that's fine. Because you know what I mean? You know what that tells me? That tells me that Wiseman and Kuminga and Moody have been getting lots of time, lots of minutes, lots of development, and there was a price to be paid in the standings for developing the youngsters. But instead, you're sitting at 500, and you didn't develop Wiseman. He's in Detroit, and you really haven't developed Moses Moody. I don't know what Steve Kerr's plan is with Moses Moody. I mean, I'd like to know. I mean, either put him in Santa Cruz, play him, but just. I've been baffled by Kerr's rotations all year, and then you're throwing out Ty Jerome. Ty Jerome had a good statistical game last night. He was horrible on the defensive end.
He's not a good defender. I think he's a good player for him, but I don't disagree.
And Lamb,
he's just limited, but he's played well for him.
And Jerome and Lamb don't have great net ratings, and yet those guys have played over the young guys. The young guys haven't really developed. The other guy, I mean, Patrick Baldwin Jr. is the son of a coach. He's got a really high basketball IQ. I think he's been very impressive in the tiny little bits that we've seen him. We're almost in March. They haven't been able to cultivate a rotation spot for a guy who's 6'10" with that kind of skill and that kind of basketball IQ.
He can sure shoot.
I got to question that. And I got to question, the Warriors hired a couple of developmental coaches, and their mindset this year was like, 5 o'clock at night, we're going to develop all these guys. 7 o'clock at night, we're going to contend for victories. And neither is happening. I haven't seen the young guys develop, and they're not winning at 7 o'clock. So I look at this year and I go, well, they're 500, but they're 500, playing two-way guys over developing their kids, and now they've moved off of Wiseman. It's just been a very frustrating year to watch.
Sure, it has been. That's another thing I wanted to ask people. 888-957-9570. To this point, a lot of Warrior fans are frustrated. What has frustrated you the most? What aspect of this season has frustrated you the most? I'm sure a lot of people would point to what you pointed to, Larry. To me, I think the reason Steve Kerr plays guys like Jerome and Lamb more than some of the younger players is because they're trying to win. They've still been trying to win. Maybe that changes at some point in the next few weeks. Maybe the priorities shift a little, maybe not. But with Jerome and Lamb, for the most part, you know what you're probably going to get. And they've been up and down. Last night, Lamb, you're right, he didn't shoot well, but he's had a lot of good games. I think if you're looking at it from Coach Kerr's standpoint, I know what the floor is for those guys. But for some of the younger guys, and Kuminga's worked his way into the rotation, but like for Wiseman and Moody, I think the feeling is, I don't know what I'm going to get, and I can't just roll the dice on those guys. Maybe that's right, maybe that's wrong. The problem with the younger guys, in my opinion, isn't that they haven't been developed, it's that they probably shouldn't have been drafted. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think that's the problem.
Well, that's interesting. I mean, okay, first of all, the draft is set up for the worst teams to have the highest picks and the best teams to have the lowest picks, and they were one of the best teams with one of the highest picks, and it's kind of what the Niners are going through with Trey Lance. It's like, well, how do you prioritize development when you got a game tonight and you got to win it?
Yeah.
And you got a bunch of guys in the room who are men, who are committed, who don't care about your development. They want to win games, and they want to win this year. And next year's not even promised, especially in the NFL. So it's a balancing act. I just think they've done a lousy job of balancing it. I mean, if you're one of these developmental coaches drawing a 6-figure salary, if I were them, I would not feel very good. I wouldn't feel very good at all. I mean, what did you develop? If you're Andre Iguodala, you're on this team to do what? Is this a 6-month golfing expedition on off days, or is he there to develop Kuminga and Moody? And if he is, where's the development of Kuminga and Moody? And they put a lot towards development this year and then didn't develop. And
I'm saying maybe it's not the coaches. Maybe it is. But you remember Hank Haney. Hank Haney's a pretty good teacher, right? Golf guy?
Golf. Yeah. Tigers' old swing coach.
Great, wouldn't you say? Probably a legendary teacher.
Yeah.
But when he decided, I'm going to fix Charles Barkley's swing, he didn't, right? And that doesn't mean he was a bad teacher. So I'm wondering if they really had as much to work with specifically Wiseman and Moody as we thought. I remember when Moody was drafted, I was in for Steiny, I think. So I was on with JD and with Dibbs, and we were talking to somebody from a newspaper down there or the school, and they said, Moses Moody's great. Oh, you're going to love him. He's really smart. Doesn't have a lot of lateral quickness. And I thought, well, that's not good, right?
He's not an elite NBA athlete at the wing. Mm-hmm. But, I mean, to me, he's still on this team if you're going to be playing Anthony Lamb. And I guess, I don't know. I mean, some people like Anthony Lamb.
He can make shots. I'm not crazy about him, but I think that's it. He's shooting, isn't he, at 38% from three-point line this year? And he's got a little size.
But, I mean, what do you do? What's even the plan with these guys? How many more games can they play before they got to make a decision?
Well, you probably have to make a decision on one or the other.
And who would you rather have of the two? I'd probably rather have Jerome. And from talking to Steve, it sounds like he'd rather have Jerome.
Yeah, the problem there is when Steph comes back, then you've got all these guards. And if you need somebody for, that's what Stan Van Gundy was saying last night, among other things. It's like he says it'll probably be a Lamb because you need somebody in the front court. But I understand why people are so upset about it. The two-way players. Why are they playing so much? But I think for the most part, they've played pretty well. And the youngsters, look, Larry, you know it as well as I do, if not better. The plan this year was for the younger guys, all three of those guys, to all step up. It's like, how do we get better from last year? We've lost Porter. We lost Peyton. They brought him back. But the plan was these guys are going to step up and assume larger roles. And they just haven't done it. That's one of the reasons why this thing is either stalling or headed in the wrong direction.
Yeah, and now you've divested yourself of Wiseman. And you didn't get a player back that can help you necessarily this year. And was that move about, it got kind of sold as like, hey, man, we gotta try to maximize Steph and not waste his championship years. I almost got a feeling like that's like kind of a secondary deal to the savings.
They saved a lot of money.
To me, it was a $37 million savings. They even had days to think about it, and they still opted to get rid of Wiseman. And it's like, you know what? That was I don't care if you're the biggest Warrior fan that ever walked the earth. Anybody who's at all unbiased can see that the Wiseman for GP2 is just a colossal failure on the part of the Warrior organization. You were either wrong to draft James Wiseman or you're wrong to get off him this early and sell so low on an asset. I mean, if I told you, man, I bought a Ferrari last year for $200,000 and I drove it 4 times and I sold it this week for $75,000, you might say something nice to my face, but as I walk away, you'd be like, he's a damn fool.
Right.
And that's how I kind of feel about the way they handled James Wiseman. They got this asset.
But he's not a Ferrari. I understand your point, but he's not a Ferrari.
You paid a Ferrari price.
You did, no question.
Might as well be a Ferrari.
Yeah. That's where it went wrong.
I'm not going to sit here and say that James Wiseman is going to be some terrible player because the Warriors got out from underneath it. They couldn't develop him. Let's see what he does in Detroit.
Okay.
Let's wait a couple of years and find out. I just saw his game last night. He had 10 points. He had 8 points, 10 boards.
Yeah.
He was plus 16. He had 3 turnovers. He had a block. He played 23 minutes. I mean, I bet you he winds up developing somewhat on Detroit.
I hope you're right. I'm very skeptical, but you may be right. And, of course, the Warriors are very nervous about that prospect. 888-957-9570. Kevin in Pleasanton, 95.7 The Game. What's up, Kev?
Hey, guys. I think that was Larry.
Yeah.
You're on fire today, bro. Everything you're saying is what I've been saying the whole year. I'm saying this from a coaching standpoint. My mom was a coach. I was a coach. My son's a coach for USA Basketball. So I'm not just saying this to say it, but everything you're saying is totally on point. if it was Larry that was going in on what was the strategy.
It was.
It seemed
You're
like
right.
It was a good. Okay, Larry, kudos, bro. Like, I'm giving you a total applause.
Thanks, man. Appreciate you.
Because it wasn't. And I'm saying this as a basketball savant, totally, right? Not as a fan. There was bad strategy, and to play Afro Man. That's my nickname for
Lamb.
What's his face? I can't think of his name. Yeah, Lamb.
Yeah.
And the other guy over Moody. That's so bad. However, that's the system. And I'm telling you right now, everything, Larry, you said is why Mike Brown left. I'm telling you.
Well, I think Mike Brown left because Mike Brown got a head coaching gig, and there's so few of them.
A lot of money.
By the way, Mike Brown deserves a little clap because Mike Brown has done a fantastic job.
Yeah.
We all know it because we were here and have followed this team for years, the Warriors, that is. When you have a losing culture, especially in the NBA, and the weight of that is just constantly pushing on you. Draft time, guys who you want in the draft don't work out for you. See Jaden Ivey, right?
Mm-hmm.
So now you got to go Keegan Murray because Jaden wouldn't work out for you. Now you got to sell your fans on how that's the right call. And there's just so many things that push against teams that are not on the it list. And the Warriors were on that list forever. So it takes a monumental series of moves to get out from that ugliness. Was it Monty McNair? Is that the GM
Yeah,
there?
that's right.
And Monty McNair and Mike Brown for turning this thing around in Sacramento. They're going to the playoffs. I would love to see a Sacramento Warriors playoff series.
Never had one. We've
I know.
never had one.
It would absolutely light up the 80 corridor. And like my brother's a judge, and he's a lifelong Warrior fan. He'd be moved to Sac. And now he's a Kings fan. You know, and he's texting me like 3 nights a week, light the beam. I'm like, beam this. Light the beam. My God.
Yeah, thank you, Kev, for the call. Yeah, the amazing thing about that is Mike Brown went up there to improve the defense, and the defense is terrible by his own admission, but they're still winning.
Well, is it their defense is horrible?
Yes.
Or is it that they're playing a breakneck pace and they've kind of chosen their pace offensively over?
That's part of it,
the
but
defense,
their
right? 'Cause
numbers
they're
defensive
rolling.
bettors are better in the fourth quarter, but they're a pretty bad defensive team, but they're just overcoming that with an incredible offense. 888-957-9570. Jay in Fremont, 95.7 The Game. Jay, you're on with Larry and Whitey. What's up?
Hey, how's it going, Larry and Whitey, man? Big fans of you guys. I don't want to beat a dead horse, but I just kind of want to emphasize how down I am with Steve Kerr and the coaching staff this year. I mean, and it's kind of scary just looking ahead. It's like they don't have no plan. You guys talked about the lack of development. I mean, since Steve Kerr has joined the Warriors, besides Kayvon Looney and maybe Jordan Poole, have they developed any of their draft picks? And I'm talking about Damian Jones, Patrick McCall. I mean, the list goes
Jordan Bell
on and on. And yeah, exactly. I mean, the list goes on and on. And I think I've seen something online recently. I think Steve Kerr's record when Steph isn't playing is like 56 wins and 101 losses. So, I mean, it's just really scary, like, just kind of thinking about the lack of plan going forward, not just this year, but the upcoming years as well.
What really bothers me the most is the disconnect that seems to be. I don't know if it's a rift, but when Bob Myers was saying, we could get an 8-foot tall player, but if the coaching staff's not going to play him, I mean that's a shot, man. That is a shot from the general manager directed at the coaching staff. So there's either some disconnect there. There's some story that's not being told that's bubbling beneath the surface. I don't know if Kerr's here long term. I don't know if Myers is here long term. I don't know if Draymond's here long term. But that quote the other day from Myers was bizarre. And this team desperately needs help in the buyout market, and they show no interest at all in adding anybody. Now, I'm not saying that there's a piece out there that fits or is the ideal piece or huge difference-making piece, but how many roster spots are you going to waste with guys who aren't really contributing and that you can't lean on?
Well, I got to save money, Larry. Here's the problem.
Really? Is that what it's about?
Part of it. It's
about
part
saving
of it.
money? Really?
Here's the problem with the Warriors. You go small, right? They play small a lot. You go back through the history of the NBA when teams started playing small, like Don Nelson's team started playing small. Why do you do that? You create matchup problems. All of a sudden, the other team has problems matching up with you. And you go back to the the lineup of death, and you had great defenders. They were small, and they posed problems for the other teams. The Warriors right now are small. Are the Warriors posing any matchup problems for anybody right now with the small lineups they're putting on the floor? They're causing matchup problems for themselves.
They like to play small.
Yes.
They like to play small. But you're right. You're right. I mean,
there's no novelty to it anymore.
Good luck to them if Looney goes down, by the way. They're absolutely naked behind Looney, inside. And then, okay, I get the why they wanted GP2. I mean, by the way, they should have never let GP2 walk. I mean, why don't we talk about that before we're patting him on the back going, hey, way to go to get GP2 back. They're the ones who let him walk. All right?
Or limp.
Yeah, So you need GP2. He's probably going to make a nice impact. You need that piece. He's
also insurance for next year because DiVincenzo ain't going to be back.
Right. Well, is that for sure?
It's almost.
I love DiVincenzo.
They're not going to.
I trust DiVincenzo in the fourth quarter of a tight game more than I trust Jordan Poole.
Well, that's the thing. You have these guys that come in here for not much money, like Otto Porter, and they show what they get, and they say thanks, see you later, and then they're gone.
But my point is, okay, I understand why GP2 was an attractive player and why Caruso was somebody they sought after. They want that on-the-ball defender. There's so many of these alpha.
That's why they looked at Patrick Beverley, apparently.
Right. Well, how about Chris Dunn? I mean, he went somewhere else, I think. They need a defensive stopper, an on-the-ball stopper. And it's nice that Peyton will be back for the playoffs. Will the Warriors be in the playoffs by then?
Right.
I mean, I would have loved to see Chris Dunn added just for the minutes that he could potentially lock down, the Ja Morants of this league that you're invariably going to have to beat many of them on the road in the final stretch of this year.
We'll get in one more for now, and then we'll get back to the calls, 888-957-9570. We appreciate your feedback here. We'll get to as many calls as we can. Gene in Oakland. Gene the Machine, you're on with Whitey and Larry. What's up, Gene?
Hey, fellas.
Hey.
So I want to build on what the last caller said and what you guys have been discussing about Kerr's shortcomings this year. What's frustrating me the most is the way he's handled or really mishandled the young players. And I really think it goes back to the beginning of the season when Dre, punched Poole. And he wasn't held accountable for it. There was no punishment, no suspensions. I think that sent a very bad message to the teams, to the young players in the team. They had to look at that and say, well, does the coach really have our back? If one of the established veterans does something to us, are we going to, is he going to protect us? And then from that point on, I just think there's been a divide. Then add to that, Kerr's impatience with the young players, been too quick with the hook, with Wiseman, Moody, and even Kuminga. They make a mistake and he immediately pulls them out of the game. I mean, that dampens confidence. It's hard to develop players when they're constantly worried if they're going to be pulled out of the game if they make a mistake. I think that's been the problem with Moody. Last year they were looking at him as a regular rotation piece. Now he's in the G League. So, Kerr, I think, has been a great coach. But when it comes to developing, young talent, especially when you're trying to win a championship, which is, really a very, very difficult task, if not impossible, I think he's fallen short.
All right. Thank you, Gene. Appreciate that.